Hey guys, welcome to the Real Estate Star podcast. I'm Benjamin Goodpasture, and this is my co-host, Michaela Potterbaum. We are so stoked to have Ben Cunnington on today, who is an amazing guy. Him and his wife, Havila, have an amazing education business, and they're in ministry. But it was really cool to just, jump in and talk about his experience with real estate, which has been really short. He's done 3 deals within about a year, similar to Michaela. And so it's just fun to hear like just his excitement. I love that he's focused on learning. Like that's one big thing that, he talked about with, it's not this like big number goals. Actually, I just want to learn. And in learning, he's like, I just want to take action. And almost like, taking that action, like results are going to happen. So I think that's really cool. And I think that's really encouraging for beginners.
Yeah.
So Michaela, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I really liked this conversation. I was familiar with Ben and Havila just from years prior in ministry and church related things, and just been inspired by them for a long time. So it was cool to be able to interview Ben and just kind of see this whole other side of things that their family's diving into, and to kind of find out we have a little bit of a parallel with our journeys in the last year, and just kind of talking through the ups and downs of what that is when you're a new investor. And I think it's something that a lot of us can relate to, just having, recently just jumped in that world myself. And so it's just fun. It's fun to have that interview. I also think we get into some really cool topics just about what it looks like to build trust with your spouse. And you guys are both married with kids, and talking through what it looks like to get into real estate when that's your season that you're in. And so I think that was another part of it that I just enjoyed kind of hearing both of your perspectives on that. So yeah, it's a good one.
I'm excited to dive into what you've been doing lately. I see like your name pop up on the Debt Presidents Club group, and I see like deal, rehab, creative finance all the time. So let's just drop in. Like, what's going on in real estate? How'd you get started? And, what's that look like for you right now?
Yeah, so I have had probably for 10 plus years the thought of one day I would love to own properties, right? Have rental properties, real estate investing kind of from afar off was an interest, but didn't really ever pursue it necessarily, or maybe it just wasn't the right time. So in the last year, maybe 16 months or so, just felt more of a more of a desire, but honestly, it felt more like this is the right time. And so I needed to take a step and move into that. And so didn't really know what that meant or how to do it. But I think the timing aligned with a friend of mine, Michael Miller, and he was kind of jumping full time into it himself after kind of a long, totally different career. And so jumped into a mentorship, and kind of I had done some of my own, just watching YouTube videos, looking for other people to follow, trying to, just do some research and some learning, which was really great. But really until I jumped into the mentorship, did I feel like, oh, I mean, it's funny because we offer a mentorship in my other business, and it's like does the same thing, right? It's like the fast track to actually go and do what you want to do. And so yeah, really it's been about a year. And so jumping into a mentorship with community, with other like-minded people who are doing it. But I think for me, comes down to finally starting to take action, and actually getting into the nitty-gritty of finding a deal, doing a deal, going through the process of, rehab, renovation. Okay, what's the exit strategy? Am I going to flip it? Am I going to hold it? And so, yeah, over the last year, I'm working on my second renovation, which is going to be done maybe in about 6 weeks. And then I'm going to put it up for rent. So I'll have 3 properties technically. in my portfolio. So within about, a year or so now.
Wow.
So
That's a
awesome.
pretty fast learning curve right there.
It has felt like it,
Yeah.
but it's been a blast. I think, I told myself at the beginning of 2024, because I felt like last year was like, okay, I'm learning, I'm getting a lot of like head knowledge, a lot of some of the theory, the information, connecting with some different people. But I, in last June, I guess, got my first little place, 2 bedroom, 1 bath in Shasta Lake, and did started a rehab. But this, beginning of the year of 24, I said, I have got to be more aggressive. And what that meant to me was like fast tracking my experience. Like
Mm.
my number one goal wasn't, I want to earn X amount of money or I want to do X amount of deals necessarily, but it was, I need to do whatever it takes to fast track my hands-on learning and experience, because
Yeah.
that's what's going to help me way more than any sort of, let me read another book. Let me listen to another podcast. Let me learn, sit and listen to somebody teach me knowledge that they have through experience. I need my own experience.
Yeah. So basically, you need to do your own deals and actually take action. So with that
Yep.
first deal that you bought, like, how are you finding these properties? How are you buying them? How's that all working for you?
Yeah, the first one was basically wholesale to me. So through somebody in the Dead Presidents group that I'm in. And so it was brought to me essentially. It was actually double wholesaled.
Mm.
So I actually probably, I don't know how good of a deal it was in the end, but for me, like, I know my personality, and my personality is to wait until all the stars align and all the things check out. And it's like, okay, now I'll pull the trigger once it's basically the decision's already made. And so this one, I'm like, doesn't have to be a perfect deal. This is my chance to get the experience.
Yeah,
It
get
That's
on
was
awesome.
base.
seemed fairly low risk. It was, not a ton of money. It's a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, it's a small place. So it was double wholesaled. It was actually a kind of a hybrid creative finance deal. So I took over
Nice.
the existing mortgage of the seller, which was like 75 grand. And then I brought in some cash to bridge the rest of it. And then what's crazy is that I didn't necessarily have a plan for like ahead of time to like pay for the renovation. I was thinking, okay, I can buy some time. I'm going to figure out how to like find either a money partner, or I'm going to figure it out. Right. It's basically what I told myself. So what ended up happening was that did the renovation all the way through and had it appraised, and then took out a HELOC on the new appraised value to pay for the renovation, which was basically worked out because my contractor, like, I didn't make me pay him until it was all done.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
So it worked out in the end. I don't know if I would recommend that
Sounds like a
that
rare.
way, but it was, because it was like, and it cost me more than I thought, the renovation. But it ended up appraising more than I had projected. So it kind of essentially was a wash, which
So
is
did you
great.
refinance it?
I'm actually in the process right now of refinancing it. So I'm about to do a DSCR, refinance out of it, and actually pull some cash out and pay myself.
Nice.
Originally, I was thinking this is just going to be a flip. And then, the more people I talk to, and, they're like, well, why don't you just keep it?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I was hoping to make some money. And so, but they convinced me to keep it and just hold on to it as a rental. And so then I realized, oh, if I just refinance it and just cash out and pull some extra cash out, I can pay myself and still keep the house.
So what would
Nice.
that do to your cash flow? What are you making currently cash flow per month? And then, getting a bigger mortgage payment, how would that affect your, take home?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I think it wasn't cash flowing massively. I mean, I think it's doing like 225 a month, maybe 250, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my number one goal with even doing the project. My goal was just get in, I think in this area, Shasta Lake, there's some new development happening in downtown. There's like $50 million being invested into the city. So my thought is I'm going to hold on and see what the next 2-3 years look like. I think values are going to increase. And so I'm going to bank on appreciation, and cash flow is just challenging right now in California anyways. So because I had put some cash into it, I did have a little bit of equity there. And so because it appraised higher than I thought, then now that leaves a little more room so I can refinance, and essentially it will be a net, cash flow monthly, but I'm going to pull like 30 grand out. So, and then still have the house and still have equity.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
Can
cool.
I ask a quick question? As far as you said last year, did you say last year you did 3 projects in a row pretty much? Or
no,
or was
within
it
the last year.
within
I
the-
have I have 3 houses technically. So our first would be our old primary,
Okay.
which we moved out of. We
Mhm.
turned that into an Airbnb.
Okay.
And so now I'm technically working on my second, like separate, rehab renovation investment property.
Mhm. Okay. So you have 3 properties, but 2 are the renovation properties that you're doing.
Correct.
And so what would you say, because I had a similar journey all within 2023. I did 3 houses back to back, and just kind of like dove like head first into it, and it was just a crazy fire hydrant experience. So I don't know how it was for you with all of that, but how's it been going for you in terms of like how long you thought renovations would take you, like as far as, and versus how long it's actually taking? You mentioned the first project was cost more than you thought. Like how has that journey kind of unfolded for you as you're like learning with all of it?
That's a great question. I think it's what's interesting, and I'm just thinking about it as you're talking, is that we have a great friend who we're connected with who's done renovation and different things on our personal property, like on our primary houses over the years. And it's just great. Like he's dependable. He's super, like doesn't charge an arm and a leg. He's super reasonable. The work is great, and he's fast. And so in the back of my mind, knowing, hey, someday I'm going to do, an investment and do properties, I'm thinking I've got this guy who I know I'm going to pull on.
Mm-hmm.
And so thankfully, yes, like him and his crew are fast and great. So I didn't have the barrier of, oh, who am I going to find to, do the work? Are they trustworthy? Are they going to do good work? What's the cost going to be? So I did have at least some prior experience with doing our own renovation on our house, working with this guy, kind of getting at least a gauge of what things cost and how to project that. My wife also is very good at like the design side of things.
Nice.
And so she teamed up for sure. Cause that's probably the least experience I have, would be like, oh, how do we, she's just super visual. She's great at it, like layout, design, all that stuff. So I did feel like having my wife and having the other guy is named Ben as well, as the contractor, were like a good leg up and giving me some confidence to just jump in and hey, I'll figure out some of those variables. But yeah, the thing that I did learn along the way with at least the first project, with it went like $18,000 over budget, which was not my first choice. But I realized, oh, okay. So, again, now I know how to better track projects, changes made along the way, communication with the contractor. Like it was a learning experience. Great. No problem. So I chalked it up as I still got paid essentially to learn, go through the process, learn what kinds of things I need to do next time when it comes to rehab, communication with the contractor, how to better project, how to, really dial that in the next time. And I got a house out of it. So, and I got paid.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it was a win-win-win all the way.
Totally.
I'm excited that you name dropped your contractor, because I was thinking he's not going to tell us his name. He found a good contractor. That guy.
I didn't say his last name.
Well, contractors are hard to come by, and so I understand if you would keep them a little close to your chest. Yeah, good ones. that show up
Uh-huh.
and don't mess things up. So when you find a good one, you want to keep them busy.
It is true. I'm definitely seeing that. And it's like, yeah, it's a fine line, right? Between, hey, yeah, we want to share resources and we want to help each other out, but also you're like, I need to book him
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Does that mean you plan on getting more projects or deals this year to, you said you want to keep learning and take action. What's that look like for you moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's I think some of what I'm trying to think through too is where do I fit within, like, whether it's my skill set, my passion, within the full scope of finding a deal all the way through to like it's rehabbed and what's the exit strategy and what do I want to focus on. And I think I'm really trying to set my focus on, finding the deals, because it's like I don't want to wait until this project's done and then think, okay, now I can work on the next one.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for what's the next opportunity, what's the next project potentially. I'm trying right now to make as many connections and nurture people along the way that could potentially be an investor with me, a financial partner, to find capital. So I'm kind of thinking along those two lines of ultimately, yeah, I'm wanting to do as many deals as possible, and I know it starts with finding a good deal and then funding the deal. So that's kind of what I'm trying to, in the midst of construction, getting this project going. I'm still trying to, my main focus be on those other two elements.
Awesome. I would say I feel like in a way I can relate again because I just kind of went through this like massive push for like diving into all of it after years of podcasts and reading. Similar to you, I was like years of just like, I know I want to do this, but how do I actually do it and all of that. And then when I finally did it, I was just like terrified, but then also so stoked when I finished my first project. And there was just this feeling of like, I didn't die. And
Yeah.
like the house didn't burn, the house is here. I might have actually found an okay deal, like, and maybe I could do it again. Tell us about
Yeah.
your experience of just, since you're just kind of still somewhat fresh in that like time frame of like stoke on it all. Or maybe, I
Yeah.
mean, some people do one deal and they figure out house flipping is not for me. It was the opposite for me. I was like, this is awesome, I want to keep doing it. For you, how did that play out? Were you just like, no, like this was great? Like, how did that play out and what did it do for you in the realm of like dreaming into the future?
No, that's great. I think it similar probably where, and I think it made me more excited. And
Yeah.
yeah, probably same thing. At the end of the day, when that first project was done and okay, I have a renter in there. Whew, okay, I could take a
Yeah.
deep breath, and it was a success, right?
Yeah.
I definitely have a hard time kind of celebrating and acknowledge.
Yeah.
I'm very much like, okay, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like just keep going. I'm like steady Eddie. And so I think that will probably be important, in my journey of actually acknowledging like that was a huge win,
Yeah.
a big accomplishment, but it definitely made me way more excited to just keep going. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I can see my path in this. I can definitely figure out how to be successful in this with the help of a lot of other people. Because I
Yeah.
think that's such an important key that I'm realizing. It's like, I'm reading this book called Who Not How, and
it.
it's all about, who do I know that can solve the problem, that can help with whatever thing comes up? What do I need to learn next? Not just twiddling my thumbs thinking, well, how do I do this? So that's been super great. But yeah, I think it's in terms of like, do I think I'm a house flipper? I don't know yet. I think that's one thing I'm still trying
Yeah.
to figure out, kind of what's my lane in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also can definitely see how people get started in, single family, and then you just kind of bit by bit expand
Mm-hmm.
your, project level or, scalability or all that kind of stuff. So eventually, yeah, multifamily and, bigger projects with, bigger margins and all that kind of stuff is in my future.
I was listening to a podcast maybe yesterday. I was driving up to Dunsmuir, and do you guys ever listen to On the Market?
It's my favorite. It's my
podcast.
favorite podcast.
I don't think I have listened to that.
It's really great. They talk a lot about just big picture market stuff and
It's a
Okay.
Bigger Pockets podcast,
yeah,
but
Oh, okay.
it's
bigger
like more of like a
pockets.
data driven side of things.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
and one of the guys on there is a big flipper, and I think just I don't think it's a challenge. I think more of to encourage you and just to kind of think through this. I think we're in real estate and being an investor. I think we should all be flippers in the sense of to really, besides buying the property, that's really where the money is made in the sense of like adding value, right? I mean, when I say flip,
Mm-hmm.
I mean buy something that needs to be renovated,
Mm-hmm.
and regardless if you sell it or keep it,
Right.
it
You're just
doesn't
saying
matter.
add value either way.
Add value.
Yeah.
You're flipping it, right? You're flipping
Yeah.
it from something ugly to something beautiful.
Exactly.
Sure.
You're doing a major renovation.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be major, I guess. It could be cosmetic. But I think if you have that core skill set, you can be so successful. You can take that from a single family home to a 100, 200 unit apartment complex
Mhm.
to
That's
a
right.
massive hotel. Like if you know how to flip a house, then in theory you can flip little individual rooms or condos or apartments. Obviously, there is some learning curve when it comes to economies of scale, organization, strategy with managing bigger projects, but it's really all connected. And so that's
Mhm.
one thing I love about real estate is like there's a foundation to it, right? Like once you get the
Yeah.
foundation of it and you start building upon that foundation, like it can take you to so many different places, commercial, residential, storage, whatever. Construction is just it's construction, you know?
Yeah. That's so good. That's totally true. And I think that's what I was thinking, where it's okay. Yeah. It's the same. I mean, all the way through, whether it's how the transactions work, all the details of it's the same process, whether it's a single family or a fourplex or a 50 unit apartment building, essentially. But yeah, different dynamics, obviously. So I do look forward to learning more and kind of jumping into the commercial side at some point. But no, that's great.
I was going to ask you, I'm familiar with you and your wife in the sense of like from, whole other side of things when it comes to ministry and church. And I've been kind of curious seeing a little bit here and there that you've gotten into this realm of real estate. I've been a little bit curious, like how that has played out for you in your family. Like it seems like it's a totally different realm than a lot of those that whole other side of things. But I mean, we're pretty open here on the podcast about our faith and the different things that we believe and we kind of carry into real estate. How would you
Mm.
say having that background, and maybe if you don't mind even giving us a little background, what that is in your background with you and your wife, like how does it play
Totally.
into what you're doing?
No, that's a great question. So my wife and I are partners. We've, run a nonprofit. It's a media company essentially. So that's my full-time, job. And we've been kind of tag team, working together for 12 years now, I guess, within
Wow.
the ministry space. And we've done a handful of different things, but, which has been great experience. So, she's more the face, the voice, the producer, she speaks and writes books and we do create a lot of content. And so I'm more kind of behind the scenes, systems, marketing, product development, distribution, things like that. And so, in terms of our faith, we've always made decisions based on, okay, what do we feel like is the season, right? What do we feel like is the right time for something, right? Whether it's a change in direction, we moved up here to Reading 12 years ago. That was a major
Wow.
change and a new major season of like us even entering working together like we do.
Hmm.
And so, but through that, there's also been this, thing in me, I think as a husband, as a man, of wanting to not only, of course, provide for my family,
Mhm.
but I think to be honest, because we have tag teamed and we work together, that has created a spot where it makes it difficult
Mm.
because it's like I'm tied to what she's doing, she's tied to whatever I
Right.
do. And so it requires both of us. Like, and we have this, a great agreement, and we're on the same page. Like, she couldn't do what she does without me, and she couldn't, and I couldn't do what I do without her. But over the years, I have always felt this thing of, I want to find some way for me to be able to provide in a different way than I have been, that doesn't require something of her, that doesn't require, like, I can come up with a lot of great ideas for our company, but most of them means she has to do more work. so I think for when it comes to real estate, this was really a vehicle that once I jumped in, tried it, and had like, okay, I can now see myself, this being a path to be a vehicle to provide for my family and my future in a whole different way that feels really good and feels like, okay. So to be honest, it's like, I've got a 5-year plan of being able to replace 75% of our income through real estate. So for me, that's a lot of the motivation. And, that's also comes down to just seasons. And so, when I started about a year ago, Havila was very supportive, and, and so I think for her, because we work together, there's an ebb and flow of where, hey, because of some of the demands that were on her, it required more of me. And so now we're in a space of, how do we manage that tension of, hey, I'm wanting to put more focus into this area, into this new lane to develop it. And so that will require her to kind of, pull back and have to, meet me there. And so, it's been an interesting but great journey to kind of figure that out together.
I'm really curious, on your decision making and mindset with doing that, because you have a successful business. One route could be to double down and really make that business more profitable, and then funnel that money into real estate and make it more passive. That's one way. I'm curious why, or are you doing that? Have you thought about that? That's the way. But I like the fact that you're taking an approach, more of an entrepreneur way of like, hey, I'm going to figure this out on doing it from nothing. Essentially, like, I want to figure out how to create wealth in real estate from scratch, essentially, instead of like funneling money from another business into, which is like the more passive way. I think a lot of investors do that, where they just, put down 25, 40% down payment, and they just build up a portfolio. And so I'm just curious why you didn't take that route.
No, that's a great question. I think also realizing, with where our company is, again, kind of going back to, at this stage of the game, a lot of what is required are things from my wife. And so I think that to double down would mean, it couldn't see at this point, I can't see another way to double down without it meaning she needs to double down, which then creates a whole different set of problems. Not problems, but like it's a hamster wheel. And so I don't want to, my desire is to create another lane to where the hamster wheel doesn't need to be a necessity necessarily for income, but it can be its own vehicle for really the whole reason why we started it, which is impact, reaching people, being able to be a blessing, and kind of from an overflow place, not from a, hey, we need to meet budget.
Probably be really freeing for your wife to choose to work, but not have to work. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's
the goal.
Deal.
That's the goal. I think she's, she's felt that for a bit. And, again, it's a two-way street. Like, we've had lots of discussions over the years but it's a tension to manage, right? It's like, I think Craig Rochelle says that, he's like, not everything is a problem to solve. Some things are a tension to manage. And so this is like, what is that? How do we manage the tension of, we're both working, we've created this ecosystem and this community and this thing. And so what does that look like to kind of make a change and make a shift? So we're kind of in the middle of that now.
So good too, just the point of like, I wouldn't have really thought of it like that. Like we're okay, so obviously like Havla's kind of more the front person and you're sort of more behind the scenes maybe, even though maybe it's not always like that. But I could totally see how you're like, well, I have plenty of ideas of how we can move this forward, but I don't really want it to continually just add more to her plate. You're trying to find a way to just like take away from her, you know, responsibility load and like lessen the load on that. It kind of reminds me, and Benjamin, we haven't really talked a ton about this, but and I don't even fully know your whole story with you and Kylie and how you kind of transitioned, but can you speak at all to the seasons of transition you guys had? Because I feel like something shifted where you went deeper into real estate and Kylie pulled back. Am I wrong? Or how did that play out for you guys?
I think most of it was geared around kids.
Mm,
Kylie was working for Bethel Music for a long time, and she was probably the second or third employee, and so she really helped build
yeah.
Bethel Music.
Mm-hmm.
She was a huge player in that, and creative director, and they're just thriving.
Yeah.
Like she had favor, getting promoted, doing really well, just adding a lot of value to that team. And I think it was our second kid was when she said that she wanted to be home with them. And it was more out of like just her priorities. Like, hey, like
Mm-hmm.
I want to be with my kids. It's one of those things like I think this could be applied in anything in life that
Mm,
just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it.
yeah.
And,
Mm-hmm.
I think when you realize like your time is more valuable than money, you start to make different decisions. So when she did that, I mean, honestly, that job was huge for us when we got married. That was our W-2 income that got
Yeah.
us loans for our first home. I was starting
Amazing.
Shasta Rock Club, the rock climbing gym, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just great, trying to get by, start this business, and there was definitely a few years that was tough, and then I started, buying more real estate and realizing, okay, wow, real estate's more scalable than rock climbing, and she was so supportive in that, and
Mm,
but that whole time, I mean, we just had one income. I mean, it was tough. It was really
yeah.
tough, and
Mm-hmm.
luckily, I mean, honestly, a big part of it was house hacking,
Mm-hmm.
and having other people pay for a mortgage was like what
Yeah.
got us through those interesting years, and that having her home and having value for just her presence with our kids, investment that you're thinking long term. Similar with real estate, you gotta like think long term when you buy real estate, and like the whole idea that short term pain gives you long term
Mm-hmm.
gains, and
Yeah.
we see that in parenting, especially when they're young. It's
Mm-hmm.
exhausting, but creating those memories and that bond, like in the later years, is worth it. So I hope so. I'm depositing those, right now.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but Kylie's been a big, big voice in a lot of our stuff, and I think wives have this discernment, and they bring the
Mm-hmm.
discernment, and men have a lot of leadership. And I've had it to where I'm driving by and I see a property, I'm like, Kylie, there's this amazing multifamily for sale. Tell her what it is. She's like, you know what? I actually drove by that yesterday and I thought we should buy it. And I'm like,
Cool.
we need to make an
Let's
offer,
go.
because if you like it, then and I like it, there's something on it. And sure enough, we
Yeah.
bought it, and it's been a great property. Obviously, there's been a lot of headaches. That's how it always is with real
Yeah.
estate. But I do think the more like alignment that we have, the better
Mm-hmm.
things work. And so I'm curious how
Mm-hmm.
that works for you guys. I mean, the fact that your wife is running a business and you're part of that too. How have you made that sustainable where you can have
Mm-hmm.
that work life family balance and just navigate the things you want to build, but also have to be connected and invest in
Mm-hmm.
your marriage? How do you do that?
Totally. I think that's a great question. How do you do that? No, I think there's I like to think of life is comes in seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where our kids are a little bit older now, so we have 3 teenagers and then a almost 12-year-old. So again, when our kids were younger, they needed a different something different, right? And so I think as our life and our family have progressed, and through different seasons, you realize, okay, what you can handle, what you can't, a lot of times through trial and error, a lot of times through, okay, hey, this definitely didn't work. Okay, we need to change that. Whether it's just, because, Havla travels and speaks. And so again, there's this trade-off of, we that's how our life is. It's very things in partnership. And so if she's doing something, like I'm with the kids, right? If I'm doing something, she's with the kids. We don't have a nanny. We don't farm our kids out. Her parents would watch our kids here and there, but it's really family. That was a priority all along. Like in whatever we do, our kids are not going to be ministry orphans, number one.
That's good.
And our marriage is going to be, we're going to do whatever it takes to stay connected, to work through things as they come, and to learn and grow together. And so again, now we're in a season where, when they were little, they needed way more. It was like survival in a different way, right? Like here, whether it's, just toddlers are all over the place and screaming and messes are everywhere, and you're just trying to keep up, and no one's sleeping if you got newborns and all this stuff. And it's, somebody's being nursed. It's like, it's just a whirlwind, right? But now, our kids they need us to be present emotionally and like physically and be connected that way. We have all boys, and so boys are fairly straightforward and simple, but it is. So now the season is, okay, hey, they need mom to be here even more. They need both of us to be present, to be engaged, especially in today's culture. That's a whole rabbit trail in of itself of how to raise kids in today's culture with all the media craziness and social media and technology and all that stuff. So it's just, so that's super important that whatever season we're in, we are on the same page, and we're a team in raising our family. And that's from the decisions of what school they're going to go to are we going to go to church, to the core things that are going to be important to their development and our family connection, and how much we're working. Like those are all regular conversations that, that we navigate together. We haven't figured it out, but I think it's, cause that's the other thing. It's like, you could set up, I think some sort of structure. Hey, we're just going to do this, and it's going to work perfectly. It's like, it's not going to work perfectly, but if there are some rhythms that we have in place and some core values that we really prioritize, and if we can hit it 80% of the time, then awesome.
I was going to say that the one consistency is change, and the fact that like I just felt like you're always having to recalibrate your rhythms. It's like your kids are changing, you're changing, and obviously I think that's a beautiful part of life in the sense of making us better, but it's not, it's always a new challenge, it seems like.
Totally.
With family and rhythms and the things you want to do. So that's good to hear.
And I think too, like being able to, which I'm not great at this, but I think the more I can have a present mindset of, hey, I've never been here before, right? In this season, at this stage of, having kids this age, teenagers, one of our kids has a girlfriend, like we've never been here before, right? So like having multiple businesses. So just being able to have grace with myself and with other dynamics in the family or situations that are happening, or, hey, this is a huge learning curve with real estate projects. And okay, I've never been here before. So I think that helps, kind of keep me on the ground a little bit and not, running into like a shame spiral of like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing anything great.
Wow. I'm taking that nugget. I needed to hear that.
It's like, I mean, even for you, right? It's like, hey, you did your first property, right? But it's like, hey, I've never been here before where I've got a boutique hotel or, camping resort and all these other properties and 3 kids and this. Like I've never been here before. So, but yes, you're right. I mean, embracing change, I think is finally started to do that. At least a little bit.
That's so
It's a
good.
river, man. It's just like you just get inside and the current just goes around you and you're just like, well, you either stand here or you just hop on a floaty and go with it. And you're
Totally.
constantly just riding that. I love that. The way you describe that. Question that I would have, and I'm kind of thinking it feels interesting to ask both Benjamins this question. From I'm single. I don't have any kids. I have a very different lifestyle than both of you as dads who are married, to your wives. I just would be curious, like I hear a lot of people say, how do I get my spouse on board for real estate investing? Like it seems like it's probably a different process for everyone, but I feel like I would be curious to hear just kind of some nuggets that you might be able to just kind of add into that conversation. What would you say to someone that's like, I'm having trouble getting my wife on board or my husband on
Mm,
board? Like what are some takeaways there?
totally. No, I think that that's super important because I mean, my wife and I always agree that it takes two yeses to make a yes,
Mm-hmm.
right? With especially with major life decisions, right? And so when you're talking about, investments or, things like that, I think one of the things that's a reality is that, you've got different personalities, right? Within the
Mm-hmm.
relationship and different levels of risk tolerance or, I mean, I think for a lot of times wives and women they need to feel a sense of safety and
Mm-hmm.
a sense of like security, and so I think for me personally it was, my wife definitely of, hey, I'm gonna believe in you and support you in this
Mm.
thing that's new, and so I don't know if it would have been her first thought to be like, yeah, we should definitely do that. She's asked me plenty of questions, of like out of caution and out of like, how is this going to work and where are you going to find the money? Are we how much are we in debt? What stuff of like, and what's the long-term plan? So, I think of on board, and it depends on, what where the person's going, right? If they're starting from zero and they're like, hey, I want to buy 100-unit apartment complex. What do you think? I think starting small is a great way. But I think at the end of the day, it's, not so much, how do I, convince my wife to be on board? I think it's more about how do I build a bridge relationally
Mm.
to that's going to make her feel secure, speaking from like, a husband to a wife or whatever the spouse needs, right? To
That's good.
feel like, okay, I can buy into this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course they believe in you, of course they want to support you, but maybe it's the practicals, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, where's the money come from? Like, what do we do at the end? Like, are you going to rent it? Like,
Yeah.
who's going to do all of that, and or whatever the questions may be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's, the more you can approach it from relationally, what does the other person need to feel either empowered, to feel safe, to feel heard, to feel like, okay, we're on the same page. That's what's most important.
It's really good.
That's good. I think for me, the dreaded words my wife hates to hear is we're moving. So there's definitely a time where I was like, hey, we're going to house hack. We're going to buy some. We're going to live in it and we're going to rent it out. It's just an investment. And so I don't want to do hardly any, upgrades. And she wants to make it home. And I'm like, we get there, I'm like, a year goes by, I'm like, it's time. We got to get that next one, And then I'm like, I buy another one, fix it up a little bit, get in there. And then I'm like, hey, babe, it's time to
Oh.
move again. And I think that, over a certain amount of years, that was pretty exhausting for her.
Mm.
And I am funny about saying this, but it's true. Therapy has been a big thing for us,
Yeah.
especially in moving into our current home, which was like my dream home. I was going to flip it, and I had to lay it down on the altar, if you will, because
Mm-hmm.
she was like, "I'm not moving," and I'm like, "This is my dream home." I'm putting in so much money, time, energy, effort, and I'm like, "This is where I see our family." She's like,
Mm.
"Mm-mm." And much resentment and conflict in our marriage, and it was really hard to talk about. It was so
Mm.
Mm,
painful. And we were going through a hard season with some loss and having our last kid, and that brought a lot of breakthrough for us. And then I think about, a lot of the stuff that I do with real estate, it became, a full-time job. So, I mean, there's, there's deals she didn't even know about. She's never even been to that property. Like she's never
Yeah.
even seen it. She's like, I don't know. I don't know how much you're spending on Cave Springs. And, sometimes I think that's good. And sometimes I think that's bad. I think, I think I can include her in more stuff. And for sure, like, hey, like I'm going through something stressful. I love some prayer. And I do go to her often and say, hey, I'm stressed. Like we need a miracle. I think I'm realizing more and more I'm a pretty big risk taker. Oftentimes I don't think that. I don't know, for some reason, because it's my normal. And then I like hear other people say, oh, talk about how much they take risk and they're a big risk taker. I'm like, oh wow, I'm taking bigger risk than you. And um, so I think just communication is so important, and just being on the same page. I love what you said, just that having a yes, being on the same page. And it doesn't work to like drag your partner
Totally.
into deals and doing stuff. I try to do that, and it was tough. I mean, I had friends that would be like, "Hey, what are you doing? This is amazing," and they're bringing like pressure, and it was real, and that made it worse. Like when they're like,
Yeah.
"Are you crazy? You're not moving there. Like, why aren't you living there?" And it didn't help. It definitely made things a lot worse. And so I think we were disconnected. And I think the more connection you have with your partner, and the more success, the more green lights you're gonna have. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like, wow, like I could have probably moved in sooner if I would have prioritized our connection and her heart. Those red lights would have turned greener much sooner.
Totally. That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Benjamins. So good.
Okay. Yes.
That's right. I think for me, I'm kind of processing through what you guys are saying, and I'm thinking of the other side of the coin as far as not being married. For me as a single female, it took me so many years to realize that I even kind of had permission or the ability to buy houses at all, because I've never had a W-2. I just now started working with a team where I have a boss and I still own other companies, but all the way up until this year, really, I've just been self-employed. So it's been like, it's just weird with taxes, and it's weird. You don't have, and there's not two of you to like put your income together. And it's just, it can feel daunting as a single person to even try to buy like anything, especially in this climate with the interest rates and everything. And I tried to buy for a year and a half. I put so many offers in, like when everything was crazy. Um, and not a single one got accepted. So
Wow.
I literally had to wait until the rates started to go up. And then I figured out that you can find, off market properties. And I figured out about hard money. And I kind of ended up going this whole other route. But I think just kind of speaking on the other side of things, if you're single, and especially maybe to the females too, because I think guys are just a little bit more kind of figure out sometimes sooner, like, okay, I can just buy a house. But um, I think one of the things I'm reminded about hearing you guys speak is like, if you are single, like, take advantage of that freedom to buy houses and house hack or flip or whatever your strategy is, and just go for it with you and God and whoever your advisors are in your life, and make sure you're making wise decisions. But take advantage of this, because, like, I mean, I'm in a season where I'm like, I can just buy houses. I live in a 12, a tiny, kind of a small bedroom in my friend's house, and all my other houses are just rented out fully because I actually don't have to live there. I can live in a bedroom somewhere, and I just have that freedom. It's different. Which is beautiful. I own a wedding company. I do weddings around the world with my wedding company. So I love marriage and I love that. But I think just a good reminder, like, there's hard things on both sides, and there's a lot of good things on both sides as well. And so I love what you guys are saying about, like, start small, like, come in with just building trust, come in with building connection, come in with, because I imagine when you did your first probably for both of you, it's like when you did your first house hack or you did your first flip, it's like when you win, they win, you both win. And then it's like, oh, like the trust is built. You can go together on the next level together. I don't know. It gets me jazzed and just thinking about like the possibility for both marrieds and singles, but I think on both sides of the coin, there's hesitation and there's these roadblocks. There's almost always
For
a way
sure.
to overcome.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great time
So,
to take risk for sure. Because at least for me, it's like, well, it's just me, right? Like, and a bunch of kids to like think of how's this going to impact them, and
right.
oh my gosh, and you can live off of less, but yes, that
Right.
also, like you mentioned, the flip side of, well, I don't have two incomes to partner
Mhm.
together to qualify for loans or all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I mean,
Right.
there's beautiful things in each season. And so, yeah, I would say maximize and just go all in on the season that
Mhm.
you're in. Right. But I mean, if you're looking for a spouse,
Mhm.
also don't get so in on what you're doing that you're not looking around and not open to, you know, um, seeing somebody. But I also think that
Mhm.
a lot of times that happens in the right lane. You're running in the right direction. And then you look over and you see like, oh, they're running in the same
Yeah,
direction, the same path as well. Like this could be a great thing.
totally.
I want
So
that for
good.
Michaela. Just another baller investor running right beside her,
Oh, wouldn't that be
who's
great?
like, "Hey,
See,
I'll fund all your
that's
deals," and then, oh, there are deals now.
Oh, that works out.
That
Never
sounds
know.
great. Hard money lender,
Yeah.
sugar daddy.
That's what I did just start working for a hard money lender. So
Ooh, there we
technically,
go.
whoever wants to come alongside me, I got access, man.
Or a
Yes.
contractor. A contractor
or
husband
contractor.
would be amazing because then you're the designer. He
Totally.
manages all the work and you trust it.
Taking applications.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I'm
let's
just
do
saying,
that.
Great.
taking applications. We're the doors are open. Anyways, I would say Ben to not Benjamin, good pastor. Looking, and we're kind of probably need to wrap up here just a little bit, but what would you say for you in the realm of real estate? What are some of the things you're most excited about pursuing? You said you have a 5-year plan. What does it look like for you in those 5 years? And maybe I'm just like, I feel like I'm similar, just like kind of experimenting with these different types of exit strategies just to figure out where I land in the equation. Figuring out where I find joy. And I'm like, oh, that thing was really fun. That flip was really fun. That thing was more painful. I don't know if I want to do that again. Like for you, what does that look like? And when you're looking at the next 2 to 5 years, do you have any ideas of kind of where you want to maybe try to aim for and shoot forward in?
I think I'm a little bit in the same space of I'm kind of, as I get experience, I am doing the same thing. Like, okay, what stands out?
Mhm.
What was profitable? What was worth my time for the current goals? And or like, is it, so again, I think I've got long-term goals, but then yeah, that shorter 2 to 5 year goal. And so I'm excited to just get all the experience. And then along the way, yeah, kind of identify, okay, here's the core things that I'm really good at. And then let's try to stay as close as I can to that. And then who are the people then that need to fill the gaps so that I don't get too much in the weeds. But I think ultimately it's, I'm excited that there's just so many options. There's just so many different avenues and ways and directions that you can win in real estate. And so I think just seeing, I guess, firsthand through the experience and then hearing other people's stories and other people's, strategies and different kinds of ways that you can win, that's super exciting and gives me, I think, hope and it's super empowering to know like, oh, whatever the shifts in the market there are, I feel like I'll be able to navigate that and have the tools to adjust the strategy to get the, the outcomes that are needed. And so I think whether that's, a simultaneous, I'd like to have a handful of houses that are long-term, it's retirement, it's long-term thinking. And then finding those other ones where, hey, I need to bring in cash now, and, kind of just navigating that. And so I'm pretty fired up right now about just everything. But at the same time, I realize like I will need to narrow, at some point. And so I think that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how to narrow, and then and not just be like, oh, anything and everything.
That's good. Finding that buy box, like the whole riches and the niches saying is huge. One thing that I really admire about you, Ben, is I just get this sense that you're scrappy, that you got this sense of like, hey, you're going to make it work. And same for you, Michaela. I feel like you're both like just scrappy, where you're like, I'm saying yes. It's that whole idea of, fire, ready, aim. You guys are willing to just jump in and take the risk.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, think about like how much you've learned because you've said yes. You've known everything, right? It's like I feel like the fear that with new investors is like, I'm supposed to know it all.
Yeah.
And you won't. Like, the only way you'll learn is by doing it. And so I'm excited because I think also, Ben, I think I think you're a big risk taker. I think you're very calculated. Like, when I hear you talk, like, you seem like you've got a good understanding of like, okay, I'm going to let the numbers lead me, not my feelings. And I feel like you're maybe mastered that. And so that's something that is often learned like later. You learn typically the hard way of like, oh man, I've learned it the hard way of, oh man, I just love this property and I'm going to, go overboard, and you realize you overspend. But it's really a numbers game, right? And it's cool because, you start off with smaller deals. Maybe you spend, in a couple $100,000s, but then like you grow and you can start playing in the millions and hundreds of millions and realize like, you know what? It's just numbers. It's just numbers, and you can figure it out. So I think it's really cool with like you guys, especially having such similar stories, doing,
that was cool.
A few deals in a year really fast. So it's going to be really cool to see what happens this year. Like, do you have any goals where it's like, hey, I want to get this done by the end of this year?
Yeah.
And what are those?
I mean, I've got the 2 properties that I have, but I'm looking at adding ADUs onto both of them.
Nice.
So that's kind of a next step that I'll tackle in the fall. And then I would love to lock up a multifamily of some sort before the end of the year.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
maybe we should talk at some point. I might have a deal.
All right.
Family, a 3-unit that I'm making an offer on today. Either I'm going to flip it, or I might be open to doing kind of like it could be a wholesale. So
yeah, definitely open to, anything you got in the hopper.
That's cool. Michaela, what's a good last question to kind of wrap things up for Benny boy?
What do you and your family do when you're not changing the world through all of your incredible channels of world changing?
We're playing a lot of basketball right now with the boys. Usually every night. Now it's summertime, school's out, and so we're doing late nights. And that's the thing, man, about teenagers. Dude, they never go to bed. So we're like, I'm up so late. So we're, that's the fun thing. We're playing sports. We do like to take family trips or vacations. So we're going on a cruise like in about 3 weeks, which will be a blast. And it's just, it's really, really good. We do love like just family time together, right? Where it's just focused, we're together. Usually that happens best on a trip, because when you're at home, it's kind of like, oh, there's always stuff to do, or somebody's, gets distracted or somebody doesn't want to participate. But when you all get away, it's like, we're all here. Like, this is what we're doing. And so, we'd love to make memories together for sure.
It's awesome. It's good.
Well, bro, it's been awesome having you. Just love hearing your heart and just kind of like how you see things and the way you think. It's really good.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me and even considering that I would be of some sort of value.
That was great. It was super good.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll have to have you back on once you get your multifamilies and
there we go.
The ADUs and everything rolling. We'll circle back and do a part 2.
Yeah. It'd be fun to have you and Havilah just to see like the marriage dynamics. I think that was a really fun part of this conversation, is just talking about, how to navigate as a husband.
Yeah.
That's great. No, I'd love to. Yeah. Well, thanks guys so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
We'll catch up soon.
Benjamin.
All right. Sounds good.
Good to see you, man.
You too. Thanks, guys.
See you later.